Let's talk about bingo and joker fuel calculations. First thing, we have to know what the definitions are. Definition of bingo fuel is the fuel required to get from the furthest point in your profile to your place of intended landing and arrive with the required fuel reserve or divert fuel, whichever is greater. Joker is the fuel required to stop what you're doing and move on to the next phase. So let's take a contact example here. Let's say I'm flying out to the Rand MOA like I have sketched here. You can see my double runways. I'm flying the false departure out and planning on coming back auger, spur, and in through the VFR pattern. So if I look up in the fuel time planning guide in my in-flight guide, it says that the fuel to get from auger through VFR entry, if you look at the notes, it says it takes you to a 2-mile final or initial. That amount is 110 pounds in 17 minutes. Since my required reserve is 200 pounds, my bingo is pretty straightforward. It's 200 plus 110 or 310 pounds. So that's my bingo. My joker depends on what else I'm planning to do once I get back in the pattern. Since that bingo actually includes the time and the fuel for one straight in, let's say I wish to do a second straight in. So I can take the 310 pound bingo because my recovery stays the same. I simply need to add one additional straight in for 50 pounds in 5 minutes. So my joker is 360. So once I get to 360, if I want to do my plan to come home and get 2 straight ins, I need to leave the MOA. Once I get to 310 though, I need to get myself moving so I can get home and get back on the ground with my 200 pounds. Of course, I can always leave with more gas than that and have even more gas to do things. To calculate my fence out time, I take my land time, I'd subtract the 17 minutes for the recovery, and then subtract another 5 minutes for the additional straight in. So I would take my land time and subtract a total of 22 minutes, and that would give me my fence out time. So fence out is always going to go along with your joker fuel. Let's take a look at an instrument example. Let's say our alternate is College Station, 390 pounds. My plan is to go out to the Rand MOA, then drop into Stinson for an approach, and then come back to Randolph for an approach and full stop. To calculate my bingo, I need to figure out what my furthest point away is. By looking up in the fuel time planning guide and the in-flight guide, I can see that to come home on an auger ILS takes me 145 pounds. The fuel to come home from Stinson to the ILS here at Randolph is 120 pounds. Therefore, the 145 pounds from the MOA is going to drive my bingo. So 390, my divert fuel, plus that 145 pound recovery gives me a bingo of 535. To calculate joker, my route of flight is actually different than that auger ILS. So I have to do a separate calculation. I want to be back home with 390 pounds. Before I was back home with 390, I was at Stinson. So I need to add 120. Before I was at Stinson, I was in the MOA. Well, that's 150 pounds. So I add all those numbers up and I get a joker of 660. To calculate my fence out time, I need to take my land time and subtract a total of 43 minutes. 25 minutes to get from the MOA to Stinson, and then 18 minutes to get from Stinson home. And that would give me my fence out time. Probably the most difficult joker and bingo to calculate would be an example here where we're going to the Tweet MOA. We want to drop in for an approach at Kelly, drop in for an approach at Stinson, and then terminate airborne while coming back for an instrument approach at Randolph. reason we're going to terminate airborne is in order to do this profile, it would actually take longer than an hour and 15 minutes. We would not actually be able to get the third approach. But for practice, we want to calculate our joker and bingo fuels based off of the 3 approaches. But our fence out time will be real world, only what we're planning to do according to the syllabus, which is 2 approaches. So here's how we would calculate that. Again, I'm a visual kind of a person, so I'm going to do a little sketch to make sure I get all of the numbers that I need. It takes 120 pounds to come from Stinson to Randolph. It takes me 130 pounds to get from Kelly to Randolph. And if I look up in the fuel time planning guide and the in-flight guide, there's actually a backdoor recovery, which isn't in our in-flight guide. It's called the Bracken recovery. I can come home straight from the tweet areas. It'll only cost me 85 pounds. So to calculate my bingo, I look at the 120, the 130, the 85. That 130 is my furthest point away fuel-wise. So my bingo is actually coming off of Kelly. So to calculate my bingo, I would take my 390 pound divert fuel, add my 130 from Kelly, and that would give me a bingo of 520 because that is my furthest point away. To calculate a joker, I work backwards. I want to be back at Randolph with 390. Before I was at Randolph, I was at Stinson, so I add 120. Before I was at Stinson, I was at Kelly. I look that up and find out it's 80 pounds in 13 minutes. So I add 80 pounds. Before I was at Kelly, I was in the Tweet MOA. So that is 75 pounds. So I add up all of those numbers, I get a joker of 665. Now my fence out, remember, only should include those first 2 approaches because we're going to terminate airborne. So it would be my land time minus 31 minutes. I add the 18 minutes to get from the Tweet MOA to Kelly and the 13 minutes to get from Kelly over to Stinson. That is how to calculate joker and bingo fuels. I hope this is helpful. As always, if you have any questions, please find another instructor in the squadron and get your questions answered. Thank you.